This is the year 62 AD. About a year ago, at this point when Paul is writing, Colossae was flattened by an earthquake. And they were not a major city hub. They were not a huge town. They were not an important place of commerce or business. And so the empire didn't really bid in a whole bunch to be able to rebuild it. They weren't entirely significant to do that for. So they were basically rebuilding themselves. There would have been many parts of town still in rubble and still in a sense of poverty and rebuilding themselves. In other words, it's an insignificant city. It's a pretty poor city, and in the way that sociology usually goes is it's probably a shrinking city. You don't have young up-and-coming businessmen moving to Colossae. You don't have all the young families who want to build a good life for themselves with a white picket fence going to Colossae. It's probably a shrinking city. And yet God honors the church here by writing to them through the Apostle Paul. It is a town that was actually visited by the fella Epaphras. So the church cannot be more than 10 years old. This church, Hope Church, is 14 years old. Pretty young church. There's hundreds of years old churches out there. There's buildings that have been there for thousands of years. This is a church that is 10 years old max. They were planted during that third missionary journey of Paul, when for 3 years he stood in Ephesus and preached for 5 hours a day, doing debates, Bible studies, and teaching, and the whole area of Turkey, or what it says is the whole province of Asia, heard of the Lord. And what would have happened is that Epaphras, who we hear about later on, and briefly now as I explain it, Epaphras would have been a businessman who was going to Ephesus for work, but he lived back east in the Colossae, Laodicea, Hierapolis area. Because what history tells us is that Epaphras went back and planted a church in each of those. We hear about Laodicea in Revelation. We don't hear about Hierapolis by name anywhere in the New Testament in terms of a letter being written to them. And we hear of Colossians now. So at some point during that 2.5-year period, Paul's preaching, he's teaching, and some guy gets saved and starts digging into the teaching, starts becoming an exemplary Christian man, and Paul sends him back over to his home area to go and plant these churches. That's what's happened about 10 years ago. His time in Ephesus was 52 AD. At this point of writing, it's about 62 AD that he's writing to the Colossians.